quite, I would say, a very important moment for us, especially now in light of the crisis situation that we have with the COVID-19 crisis. So, welcome aboard, and I'm happy that you're on board with us, partnering with us in this very, very important mission. So, we're actually here today. We want to launch the Optimal Revenue Management System. As you would be aware, that's our new tax administration system. This has been a long time coming. As you know, we had several issues with our TRIPS system, which was the previous system that we are using, and we did try to upgrade that with a TRIPS 2 system, but that wasn't successful. And this is now our solution to the revenue management system. So for, I would say, within the next year, we will have a totally new system replacing the TRIPS management system. We're hoping to be launching this for early next year, which is February. I think Mr. Jones will get into more details in the timing of the different modules that we will be rolling out. We have, I think the most important thing that we are going to be benefiting from the new system is the e-services module. Again, that's very important. As you would have known, we've been making several initiatives in terms of the rolling out paperless solutions and using emails for a lot of our processes. And this is going to be very useful because we're going to have the, submission, electronic submission of returns, electronic payments, and it's going to be a lot more features which Mr. Jones will get into. We are asking you to get on board this early. This is just like a sensitization session because we want to make sure that you are also making preparations within your offices and also alerting your clients of the impending changes that we're going to be having for the system. Particularly, we want to target the large taxpayers, and we want to make sure that they're fully on board with this. So we want to do away with submission of returns and payments manually for those taxpayers. So if your clients are large taxpayers, then we would want to encourage that you get them on board with that. So again, I want you to have a look at what we have to offer, and we want to have your feedback. For example, with the new processes that we're going to be implementing. We're not just implemented what we have and totally computerized that and give you back. We've actually looked back at all our systems and the processes, and we try to make them as efficient as possible and also make it easy for use. So persons would not find it so difficult to use the system and to submit their returns and make their payments. So that being said, we also would encourage your feedback for the ease of use, and also any SOPs or things that you think might be difficult for you to use. We want to hear what you have to say. Also, we will be rolling out training shortly, so we would also want your feedback for the best way for us to do that. I know that we want as much as possible to do electronic training, so let's see how much we can do that, but where possible, if it's necessary, we will do it in person. And maybe we would meet from time to time to actually have feedback for different aspects of the modules, and we would encourage that you come on board with us and give us that cooperation. So I actually don't want to take up much more time, as Mr. Jones has a packed session for you. And just let me say welcome once again, and thank you again for partnering with us in this initiative.
Yes. All right. As the DCG said, we're here to introduce our new product for tax administration called Optimal. And as the presentation is saying, Optimal Efficiency, Optimal Revenue Management System, with our slogan, Think Different. This product is been a long time coming, as the DCG indicated. So over the next few minutes, we're going to cover a couple of topics. We've already addressed the welcome from the DCG. I'm going to talk you through a small introduction on what Optimal is, and then we're going to talk some about some of the changes we anticipate. As we indicated, this is not simply a software. It's a true rethink of our standard operating procedures and customizing our internal work processes so that we can best serve your needs and interaction with us and administer the taxation as per the laws. So we're going to look at some new filing dates. We're going to give you a tour of the e-services, and then we're going to talk about some of the benefits to you and walk you through what the filing experience is going to look like in 2021 and beyond. And as the DCG said, we are going to do some impressions where we take feedback from you on some of your initial thoughts on what we have done so far. So Optimal. Optimal indeed as a project and a product. Typically when you do new software systems, people tend to think of a software as just a product and somehow expect the software to solve all the problems. In reality, there's a number of business processes, training, and a number of things that need to go along with that product, right? The software is just an automation of your optimized functions. You make use of your software as a tool to best guide you through your activities and to accelerate what you can do, expand your capabilities, right? So Optimal is a powerful, flexible tax revenue management system that drives up taxpayer compliance and revenue collection. It is a complete rethink of tax administration in view of modern tools, meaning that the GRA really thought a lot about how we can do things better and automated a lot of that in our new product, right? Improve customer service interactions and set the platform for further innovation, meaning once we have moved away from trips and onto this new platform, we're pretty much preparing ourselves for further innovations where we can layer on more new tools and so on to improve our services with you. All right. So the project versus the product. We're going to spend some time talking about the project itself. So in essence, what we would have done is over the years, we heard your complaints. We suffered our own internal discomforts. We're trying to get things done using the platform we were on, Trips. And, they really took a toll on us. We tried to upgrade in several ways. That did not necessarily work out according to our expectations. Then ultimately, we found a vendor with a product that sort of fit closest to our way of doing business. So we started working with that vendor to further refine our operations and ensure that the product meets our needs. So the needs assessment was done. And while going through it, we, like we said, worked through every single SOP from every department, look back at the laws that support it, and try to tweak every part of the experience to make sure, to the best that we can, it's represented in the software and improve our control of the process. We took a hard look of all the returns, notices, demands, all the documents that we use to communicate with you. You file with us the return, registration forms you send to us, notice assessments we send out to you. We had a relook at all of that to make sure that they all, are part of this big orchestra and everything is playing their part to the best that it can. Stakeholder engagement throughout this process, we have been talking with some of you guys. Our first session like this did not necessarily produce the best response, but we were in contact with a number of persons talking through some of our intents to solicit feedback to further refine the process until we come to something that we all are in agreement with. Extensive training. Now this here is, we'll spend a lot of time making sure that GRA staff members are on board with the process. Yes, we can build a new product, but if our mentality is stuck in the old way of doing things, then we pretty much have not really achieved the type of change we were aiming for from the start. So there's going to be a lot of training to make sure that our staff members are on board, not only on the product itself, but with an intent of improving service delivery, right? Spending time making sure that our customers are treated well, they're given feedback at every step of the way. So there's a visible process. You can see and understand what is happening, why it's taking the time that it's taking, where it is along the way. Later on, I'm going to show you tools that you'll have at your disposal to be able to track those things. So in terms of a schedule, this is what the project schedule looks like at the moment. As you notice, it will be delivered over a period of 3 years, with the first phase being delivered in January and 2 phases thereafter expected to go live in May of 2022. The first phase will pretty much replace strips. Some components are in, some components are missing. We're going to work through how we're going to manage those. But to a large extent, from your perspective, a lot of what you know and more will become available to you. The second phase will concentrate on, as you notice, advanced compliance, business intelligence, risk profiling. Those are more back office type operation. As a modern knowledge-based entity, we sort of need to ensure that we're driven by the data that we have. So we're going to employ a lot of business analytics to further refine how we interact with you, the type of information we ask you for, and hopefully improve the experience to a large extent. All right, so we're pretty much here in December with about, I don't know, 60 or 50 plus days remaining before we go live. All right, so as I indicated to you, we did a complete rethink. And part of this was we went over all of our forms. Forms here meaning returns, application for registration of a taxpayer, tax type, any sort of interactions that you have with us. We wanted to standardize it. So what's the rationale? Yeah, this exercise considered the following categories of documents. We look at returns, registration, notice assessment, license demands, certificates even. We went through all of them to ensure fitness for purpose, that we are getting what we want out of them. Typically, as time go by, some pieces of information may no longer be necessary because we can collect it in other places, or we recognize that we are missing we're not asking some critical questions. So this is what this exercise was intended to do, really to refine it and ensure fitness for purpose. All right. Ensure they are consistent with the laws and regulations. We would have done some amendments that in fact would have changed some of the requirements that we did not also in a timely fashion update our return. So we had to find some ways of sticking some values in, like other or something like that in the forms. So we try to make sure that we are a bit more explicit in expressing the data that we're asking you for. Ensure consistency in language, layout. So we wanted to make sure there's some standard looking returns, everything looked the same way. Improve the ease of internal administration and chores. There are a number of forms when they get into the GRA, they follow a process. To improve the visibility of the process, we got stamps, where it's at, what segmentation of the taxpayer we're dealing with. Those things inform how they're routed through the organization, whose desk it will stop at, and the priority it needs to be treated with. So all of those things we try to incorporate in the layout of the document. Improve readability by simplifying the language and layout. Again, layout here is really trying to group similar ideas together, make it easy for you to be, try not to be ambiguous in the language. I know because we're driven heavily by the laws of Guyana, oftentimes we tend to repeat the language of the law in our interpretation. While for experts that might be fine, it's not necessarily great for persons who are now coming into taxation, an individual that needs to comply. Like, what does the sentence mean? Like, I see the logic, but I don't fully understand what it means. So we try to make the language as clear as possible and target the man in the street in general. And lastly, we try to improve the aesthetics and appeal of the document, but you'll let me know if we manage to achieve that. So summary of changes, new returns. We've introduced a few new returns. Previously, you would have submitted a letter or so for capital gains tax. We've now introduced a standard form with asking for the specific pieces of data that we will need to effectively process that tax type. We are now reintroducing partnerships. Right now, because of the limitation of trips, we typically had registration for individual and companies, but did not necessarily register a partnership separately. While currently partnerships are indeed registered for VAT, they're sort of treated like a company in a way. but I will show some details later on where how we, one, register the partnership independently, and two, show you how the return will be filed, and in essence how the shares from the partnership will be split among the individuals that constitute it. Tributaries tax, we now want to be able to collect this in a very flat electronic form. This is not a paper-based one. This is going to be treated very similar to PAYE. Just a note on the partnership. For those of you, or for those clients that you may have that are already at partnership, they will have a new TIN, because as you would have noticed, we have a convention where various tax types start with companies. I think it's companies has a prefix of 0, individuals 1, and partnerships will now have a prefix of 2. So for those partnerships that are already existing, expect that your TIN will change to be consistent with this naming convention. All right, application forms with professional fees. I think there's a new application form that will assist you with that. And electronic returns. So the ones you'll be targeting is the withholding tax. This is both for 2%, any withholding tax, the 2% withholding tax that come from for contractors, pretty much any withholding tax you think about. This one form will be able to capture the data. You, in essence, need to indicate what type of withholding tax you're doing, and then specify all the remaining details: who's the taxpayer, the type of service, and so on and so forth. Travel tax, travel voucher tax, and PAYE. These two will all be electronic submissions. We target these as electronic because they're sort of detailed, and we don't want to spend too much time having our staff members keying back what you would have produced. So having them electronic format allows us to ingest this data and move on with the process. All right, revamped. Now, again, a lot of attention. By far, corporation tax return took up the majority of time, given its complexity. So we spent a fair number of hours, days, weeks, in fact, poring over the corporation tax, hoping to trim it down, remove any form of duplications, simplifying language, organizing it, and laying it out better. So we introduced a set of new schedules where they didn't exist. We also would have streamlined existing schedule to be more consistent with the laws, streamline the logical flow of the schedules. You would have noticed in this case about being being consistent with the laws, we would have introduced this whole commercial, non-commercial, I think it was 2017 budgetary measure that came through. It is reflected on the CT return. However, the schedules did not reflect that split. So those are some of the changes we went back to align everything so they are consistent with the law and make it easy for you to roll up your values. We prepared detailed examples of more complex computations. So we went through, rewrote the taxpayer guide, like how to use these documents, examples of how you can prepare them. So you have a lot of resources available so you can validate our intent, validate that you would have filled out the forms correctly. Pretty soon we will send to everyone in this grouping and make available publicly our website. We are in the final stages of completing, which will contain all of these resources that we're discussing here, about all the detailed changes in the form, samples of those forms, and so on. I'm going to give you a quick glimpse of those returns in a few. Individual income tax. So we introduced, now individuals, especially self-employed, we have a growing group, and as such, we need to be able to quickly identify risks, and in that regard, the GRA indeed is putting a lot of emphasis on reducing the mundane tasks, and in that regard, trying to figure out how best we can apply the limited human resource we have, so that we, improve service to you and collect the tax that we're obligated to. So in that regard, we're taking on a more risk-based approach to tax collection, and this means using a bit more analytics to determine, where deficiencies may exist and so on, and go after it. So this will eventually come to companies as well, but having an electronic version of your financial statements allow our analysts to quickly determine, whose compliance, in essence, take the appropriate steps to remedy if necessary. It makes it so much easier for us to process a large number of taxpayers simultaneously. As mentioned earlier, there's a comprehensive review and update of our guidelines and notes, and all in there to assist you guys in filling out the forms correctly. You may be surprised the amount of time that the agency spends tracking down taxpayers to correct information on their return, thereby slowing down the time it may take to process things like refunds and anything that may come back to you at the end of the process. All right. So company property tax, individual property tax, premium tax, tax and bets, value-added tax, like all of these forms we pretty much just went over and tightened on them. Right. Summary of changes again. Registration forms, individual and organization. You will potentially see this language of individual and non-individual, but it's the same grouping we're talking about. And filing dates. Now, the product we were working with to aid with compliance, certain needs a specific date for filing. So you may recall that value-added tax and withholding tax would say so much days after the event you file, or whatever period after a particular event. That is very difficult for us to enforce in terms of ensuring that you file, because we first need to be aware when the event happens. So we can't therefore tell whether or not you file on time and so on if we don't know the event. So in that regard, we thought it best to rearrange our filing dates so they are fixed dated, so we are clear as to we are and you are clear as to when you're supposed to file what particular return. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick glimpse of some of these returns. This is the corporation tax return. You would notice, as per standard, the Guyana Revenue Authority or logo. At the bottom left here is the number for the form, and I'm going to zoom in. So if I could, yeah. So for the top, we have a number for the form, and to the right of that is a version. Now, this is going to be a convention that we follow, because from year to year, what is going to happen as new tax laws come in, more amendments come in, the form may require changes. So this gives you a sense as to make sure that you're using the correct form, the correct version representing the changes that you're supposed to be for that period that you're filing for. All right, so look out for those things. To make prominent, and again for easy internal processing, the year of assessment is all the way at the top here, so we can quickly see it. If the document is submitted in correction or as an amendment for a previously filed document, please ensure this is checked. Right? I say all of this, let me back up a little. While indeed we've done a lot of work on these paper-based returns, the strategy going forward really is not to encourage manual filing, but really we need you to file online. We really don't want you guys coming to our offices unless absolutely necessary. We understand the parking challenges, all the issues, especially in this COVID-19 context. We really don't want you coming to the offices. But we must walk you through but the form itself represents the change in data that we have. So I'm taking time to go through at least one of them, so you get a sense of how the strategy was manifested, what are our thoughts in putting it together. But really and truly, we do prefer an online interaction with you. I'm going to spend some time later on as I show you the online services, but just understand that this here is ready for us to collect the data. All right, so To aid with hopefully scanning and so on, we spaced out these numbers so you can collect them. Similar to the amendment checkbox, if registration name or any particular fact about the taxpayer has changed from the last time you filed, this checkbox here is to give us indication that there's to alert us to a change that will have occurred, right? So all the personal details, registration name, business name, whether your address, one or the other, whether business address or legal address has changed, you can indicate that to us, right? The usual facts you're accustomed to, and then we pretty much break out into declaration and then business activity. The business activity here is trying to get us a sense of which sector you're operating in. This may eventually disappear from our returns after we get a better documentation of each company and which segment they operate in, right? So if you notice here, we get to specify up to 3 main products and what percentage of your revenue, in essence, estimated percentage of revenue derived from there, just to get a sense of how what your income profile looks like. And then sources of income. Now this is the part I think you most would be familiar with, the turnover, and then we get into the various income heads. All again split into commercial, non-commercial, where they apply. Tax breakdown, details of your operation, and any deductions and so on. Deductions, allowances, and finally you get down to income. Well, that's a final income subject to taxes, credits, and then you get to your final tax due position. Accompanying that CT return, sorry I didn't open this ahead of time, is our set of schedules. So what you will notice once you get your hand in this form is really an indication of where we're headed. If you notice here, it's pretty much the return captured on an Excel sheet, and all of the schedules that we've created calculate and roll up to populate the various line items on the return, right? In a latter phase with the vendor, what we're hoping is that we will prepare for your clients an Excel document similar to this, upload that document, and we pretty much extract all the content to prepare the return on your behalf. So filing wouldn't necessarily mean filling all of those line items in the return and then also uploading schedules. But we're not there yet, so in the interim, the expectation is that indeed you fill out all of those things online and upload scanned copies of the schedule, or better yet, outside the scanned copy, electronic version with these numbers in it, so you can make some internal activities so much easier, right? But this is what the future holds, and as I promised, we have a number of well, first of all of the existing schedules, and we got some more split into commercial and non-commercial where required. Okay, so that's a view of the stamp of the returns. Oh, I did promise I would give you a look at the partnership return. As indicated, we have a standard header with all these facts here, things about the taxpayer, amendment, change, and so on. But for a partnership return, we don't expect any payment coming from a partnership return, saving apart from VAT. But other than that, you pretty much will be declaring the activities of that partnership and then indicating to us how that the share of income is split among the partner. So from period to period, you will provide the details of the partner, the percentage of distribution, and the actual amount of partner and beneficiary share of the income, right? Now, this value, of course, is going to be tied back and be expected in the individual's income tax return form of the partner. So this is more just tying up the accounting between what happened in the partnership, split out the shares, and see it manifest on the individual income. Now, Also, the summarized financial statement for individuals. We're trying to get a sense of what the financial statement, balance sheet, and the profit and loss statement per an individual would look like. Again, this is a summarized position. The detailed one is still expected to be filed, though this is going to be the electronic copy that we use for risk management purposes. As part of the process, cleanup of our individuals, we want to start issuing a TIN certificate card. We are still to decide whether or not it will bear a photo, but we certainly will be collecting photographs of our taxpayers to prevent the possibility of duplicate registration. We also will start collecting signature samples for various entities and individuals. This way, should you write the GRA instructing us to take an action on your behalf or responding to any method, no one can misrepresent you. Our staff will have the samples to verify that the instructions sent to us are in fact legitimate and coming from the principal. While I don't have a sample here, but the certificates for company will also change a bit. Those that you're expected to mount on your walls from companies and businesses. It looks very similar to our vehicle registration certificate, but in essence, these will be some of the changing documents that you will see coming with the new product. All right, so now on to the product tour. I'm going to ask my colleague to walk you through a bit, but just to give you a sense of what to expect. Now, first off, the product is split into two. We have our online services, e-services, which you'll be interacting with mostly, but also there's the internal product that staff members of GRE will be making use to complete any transaction that we do. So some key things for the main features of the e-services. We will facilitate in this first phase filing of CT, IIT, VAT, PAYE, travel tax, travel voucher tax, individual and company property taxes. You will be able to see your balances over a particular period. Any returns you would have submitted, go back through them. However, this period will be limited to, for balances that is, this period will be limited to those interactions you have with this product, right? We are working through with filing for backdated returns. There are some challenges around filing it, but for the most part, you will be able to file backdated returns. How far back is the issue we are working out with the vendor, giving all the complexities with how the rules changed over time. It's literally retroactively implementing those rules and ensure that each return for a particular year behaves according to the laws for that period. So that is taking some time with us, with the vendor, to sort that out. So you may not necessarily see that immediately, but we are working towards getting it. All notification, notice of assessment, demand notices, outside of sending them to you physically or to your clients physically, we also will be sending them through the platform. Now, we've already modified the laws to make our delivery of notices electronically legal, so we are not really under any obligation to send you a paper-based copy, and we really would like to see more persons making use of our online facility and sort of coming into the modern age that we live in right now, as opposed to running around with a whole lot of paper waiting on the post girl to come to you before you can get a piece of communication from the GRA. Notices and case management, I mentioned that already. So the case management itself is what I really wanted to talk to you guys about, because while you have a glimpse of it through the services, the real benefit is bringing some sort of control and visibility to internal processes. Now, every major activity is handled in a case within the product, meaning someone comes to register, you begin a registration case, you collect the details, it moves from one desk to the next, and the officers can make comments as to anything that they want changed. It goes through an approval process and finally comes to conclusion. Now, this is a massive improvement in our administration, as it now gives supervisors, managers, and leads of the GRA, senior executives of the GRA, strong sense of visibility as to what's happening with any process. We can see how long it's taking if a staff is not performing according to the standard time. If a case gets stuck, we can trace the history quite much easier as opposed to tracking it down in paper ledgers and manual formats. It's much easier for us to do this. So come time when we're doing performance appraisal and performance assessment within the organization, we can quickly identify and remedy performance gaps, right? For a taxpayer calling with a problem, you will notice also through these services later on, if you need to raise an issue, you'll have a team internally that will first read your inquiry and route it to the appropriate department. Again, giving us clear visibility of the type of issues that our customers are experiencing and being able to remedy those issues in a meaningful way. So if we have good statistics coming in now, clean data about what are the challenges our taxpayers are facing, what are the usual problems that come to our front desk, then we can respond to those issues with either providing learning material, providing further explanation. So there's much better response to issues that our taxpayers bring, and data-driven sort of decision making from the top down. While we indeed have a fair amount of data, collecting data on the flow of your transactions, the type of number of transactions, and the time it takes, and so on, does allow us to step our game up in a significant way in terms of the type of service we're able to offer you and how we're able to offer that service. Sub-accounts is another area that is a tremendous benefit for you as well. The sub-accounts, I'm going to just jump to that. What sub-accounts are is, especially for accounting firms, you represent multiple taxpayers as your clients, right? However, while a primary account needs to be created for someone within the accounting firm, he can then create sub-accounts for his staff members and decide which clients that particular staff member will be responsible for. So I presume what happens for you guys right now, you have staff 1, staff 2, staff 1 handles 30, 50 of your clients, and they know their list of clients that they handle. This product actually allows you to assign clients just like that and allow them to sign in and see all the details about their clients and manage their accounts on behalf of the firm. Now, you may have missed this point earlier, but all accounts created, though you may be your representative of a firm, we still need a person to create that account, right? And subsequently, they can create sub-accounts to distribute cases to their staff members, right? So I'm now going to switch you over to Miss Elizabeth Bourne, who will walk you through some demos. But before I do that, I'm going to play you a quick video as to what the sign-up process looks like. It's very simple. So you simply provide facts about you, the person that is signing up. Yeah, so where it says username there, we're expecting you to use the TIN of the person that is registering the account that you're going to access. That right there is the TIN that should be used, right? You create your password. Notice you'll get immediate feedback below on the strength of your password and ensure that you meet all the requirements. Notice it automatically checks off. Once you have registered to us, sorry, let me talk about it. So these security questions are important just in case you forget your password. But once this process is complete, it's similar to what you're accustomed to right now. We're going to send you a verification email. You click on that email, and thereafter GRA is going to grant you access to that account. Right now, one thing we are working on that is not in place yet. In order for you as the accountant to have access to your taxpayer, that taxpayer must write us, prepare a form with all the facts about them and your agency, indicating that they would like you to access their account and take control of their account. That form too will be provided on the resource page that I mentioned. At this point, I would really like to encourage you guys to, as soon as possible, as soon as we launch, if we can, we will start working on pre-registration, but we'd like for you and your clients to sign up as early as possible, because come April 30th of this year, we really don't want to see too many paper-based documents coming to our offices. We like that experience to be mainly online. All right, so let me now hand over to Ms. Elizabeth Bourne, who will walk you through some of the features that we have available online. Stop sharing. Good.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I will just, you saw the video where the taxpayer was registering for the e-service. I'll just log into an account to show you what the taxpayer will see. It'll be more focused on that of the accountant, right? So just going to log in. So here we have the example. The accountant is Jack Ali, and here you'll notice that he has a client and his account here. So just want to show you, if we go to the client Beth Bourne, here you will be able to see the taxpayer's account. You have the account information, returns that would have been submitted, payments made, and so on when the return was due. Also balances on that taxpayer's account. If you notice in this corner here, you have notification, action required. We have return overdue. This shows that the person did not submit their return here for 2020. We have reminders as well. You could make the screen expand and reduce. You can go to other pages depending on your taxpayer. Here we have message for the individual. If I click on view unread message, I'm able to come in here and see what is going on the taxpayer's dashboard. You notice here this one has to do with registration. This speaks to the first time the taxpayer was registered with the GRA and has been approved for TIN registration. Now, if I come here now and I go to manage user, this is you as the accountant coming in here and say, okay, I have my staff. For example, here, Jack Ali has a staff called Pamela Jones, and she is responsible for tax types, all these tax types here. And in this corner here, you can tell that she has access to Beth Bourne, the taxpayer, one of Jack Ali's taxpayers. And she has permission to do inquiries, returns, payments, check their accounts, and registration as well. If you have more than one staff that you need to add, you can come here and add another staff. Simple requirements. Let's try one. Okay, so we're just instead of adding, we're just going to go through each one of the screens. As I mentioned on the page before, you were able to see the permissions. That is what you'll be able to detail out here. Check off what the person will be allowed to do. If you notice here, you have administration permission, which allows the staff to create and manage other users. You have the tax types. You determine which tax type that particular staff will be able to do transactions for. And accessibility, here you get to determine which taxpayer that particular staff can manage information for. And if you want to, at this point here, you can come and file a return for your taxpayer. Click on File Return and select which return you want to file and for which year. You notice it tells you right here that it's overdue. You can go here and you can start the return. Save and continue, and you would notice that the information that is here would resemble that of your tax return. What you can do, you can save and continue, and you have the save and draft button where you can fill out all the details or pull out as much details as possible. You can save and you can come back the next day and submit the return. You can go to the next step, you can go forward, you can go backward. Okay? Okay, let me just go back to inbox.
So at the inbox, this is where I mentioned earlier, where you pretty much can raise any issue with the GRA, and this is where we're talking about that sort of visibility. If you use this channel to start any communication, then we can track it from start through to conclusion. Our supervisors will be instructed to keep a close eye on the service level agreements. How long is it taking for persons to respond to issues? We'll be putting some controls in place where we can establish how long each process should take, how long after receiving a comment we should make our first response. But of course, as you may appreciate, each issue may require a different level of effort, so or we have varying levels of complexity. So the time to completion we may not be able to predict to say that, hold the staff to X number of time. But we will have service level agreements as it regards at least the initial response and ensuring that there is traceability straight through to completion at the end. Similarly, like I said, for each internal case that we process, it will be following this whole case management approach to getting things done.
Here is where we can come and try to communicate with the GRA or communicate with the GRA. We come and we can ask a question. We can upload a file and send the message to the GRA. GRA gets your inquiry to tell you, okay, that your case is going to be looked at and this is your inquiry case.
Reference number. Now note that this is not, while you can do it through e-services, we still accept calls, only that the staff internally will take your issue, create the case on your behalf, and then route it accordingly. This case, even if created by a staff, will also show up in your online profile that this is a case that, some issue you requested with GRA, and you can therefore track its progress internally. Okay. All right. So thank you very much, Liz. Okay, so we covered some of the features of the services. You now have a better appreciation as well for how some of the internal processes will look. We now understand what sub-accounts are. I now want to cover what filing in 2021 is likely to look like. As you may expect, with a change in our core software that we use to administer tax, it's quite a difficult task, and we're trying our utmost to make sure we don't suffer the fate of some of our sister agencies, other large entity agencies in this country that have changed their internal product. So you will, however, feel some of the transition, and we're trying to mitigate some of the challenges you will feel. So as I'm saying, we want to really asking you guys to push your clients to move online. That is by far the best experience. That's by far the less congestion in the office. We have this challenge where we have to migrate all of your data from trips and move it over to the new product. We also want to ensure that is done quickly, safely, and completely. But we will be doing verification checks whenever we have our first encounter with the taxpayer. Now that is essential because it can have a time effect. If you now have to perform an extra task, it can significantly slow down the whole filing process. So if you guys can file early, then that would help us a whole lot. File online as well, so that it help to leave space for the larger group of taxpayers that we have to deal with, which is our individual group. Now, on that note, while we're driving a lot of you online, we appreciate that some persons, either whether they can or cannot file online, some of them will come to our offices. Please note for companies, however, this year would be the last year you can legally file as a walk-in taxpayer. We will be putting laws in place as soon as possible to make it mandatory for large entities to file online. Right? So these measures are here to really see us transition through this period. Now, what we want to do for our manual filing, or walk-in filing this year, is to target or segregate our taxpayers so that we can bring forward companies, self-employed, and have those processed as quickly as possible. In general, employees' returns rarely have revenue implications, right? So we want to make sure companies and self-employed, because mainly the companies would have filed PAYE for them already. So it rare is the case we're going to find any revenue on them. But however, because they are such a large group, they affect the type of service we were able to deliver to the companies and employees. So what we want to do this year is try to do a sort of segregated service. So we're going to have 3 drop boxes, and respecting the COVID measures as well. We're going to have 3 drop boxes where for companies, you literally come and drop in your blue box. It's going to be literally blue and labeled companies. And the self-employed and partnerships, you drop your returns in that and leave. But before you drop it, what happens is that we'll have someone manning the boxes. They'll first look at your return, ensure that it's complete, ensure all of your schedules are attached, and then they're going to stamp the date on it and drop it in the box. So we know what date you lodged as at the time it goes into the box. Our current operation is when the box is cleared at the end of the day, perhaps the next day, then the stamp goes on. So we want to make sure that we get the date and time, well, really the date that it was lodged at the time you're dropping it in the box. We also want to make sure as early as possible we identify and correct any deficiencies with the return. So what we are aiming for is improve the quality of returns that we submit to the internal process, right? These drop boxes we want to put at various sites. I'm not sure if you can see that clearly, but the conversation right now is about putting 2 tax sites on Waterloo Street. This is GRA's building right here. So just behind us, away from the traffic, even on the Google image you can see right now, there's much more vehicles. They tend to take pictures on Sundays. There are a lot more vehicles behind GRA, in front of GRA on Camp Street than on Waterloo Street. So we want to divert the traffic for filing onto Waterloo Street, where you can have a drive-by experience. So if you have all your returns prepackaged, you pass it the box and you drop it there. We'll hand it over to the staff and then they vet it and drop it. If the line builds up on either side, we want to have staff members walking the line so we can service you in your vehicles and collect it. And we're really hoping for a very seamless experience as you come to file returns with us. Now, if needs be, in our parking lot on Lamaha Street, or running along parallel to Lamaha Street, we want to do a drive-through there where you drive in, and then at the site right there, you drop your box and head back out. Now, we also want to encourage you, because we've noticed a couple of accountants and so on dropping the checks in with the return. This is a behavior we think that can actually we can facilitate and advertise so other persons could start doing it, because it allows us to not only process your return but process your payment and subsequently send you notification and evidence that we have received and processed your payment. Right? But like I said, I want to keep re-emphasizing the priority on the online experience. These are secondary means of filing. They're not the ones we really want to encourage. But I understand we do have limitation with regards to completing your obligations entirely online, given the fact that we do not yet have a payment facility online. Unfortunately, this is not a limitation on the GRA per se. We are not a bank, so we have, however, been working with them so we can establish a means of processing online payment. Right now, we have gone ahead to create a product called our payment order. What this allows you to do is to get online, make your payment order. This is saying I want to pay corporation tax, a taxpayer, this, that. I want to pay this out of value. You, in essence, itemize all line items you'd like to pay, and then submit that. And then we produce a reference number, right? That reference number you take to a financial institution. When I say take here, this very well could mean go to their online facility, make the payment, provide the reference number. They confirm to us that a payment went through. We take the reference number, look at the line items you said you were going to pay, and allocate the payments accordingly. Then we will send you notification that we have processed your payment, and also update the online facility that your payment has been processed. Right? So this is what that product looks like and what that experience should look like. And notice it's not just for taxes, it's for any of the interaction, any of the services that the GRA, taxes, customs, any one of them. Good. So that is the reference number now you're expected to pick up and take to your bank and make that payment. We also will facilitate persons, if you pay by check and drop at our box or come in and do the payment, we still will also respect the instructions coming out of the payment order on how to allocate that money. Now, that complete online experience for payment, we're in advanced stages with the commercial and central bank in getting that arrangement settled. We are very hopeful that we'll be able to get that to you prior to April, so that you can make use of this facility for filing and payment. However, it still remains to be seen whether the commercial banks will be able to pull this off in a timely fashion.